Kentucky moonshine is no joke, children. Holy Christmas.
Looking a little fuzzy this morning.
I feel a little fuzzy this morning.
Yeah, you have to sit next to me in the morning.
This morning.
Yeah. I woke up a half an hour ago. It's still morning, sir. What don't you understand about that?
Okay, well, I'm just so happy to have you guys here. Like I was telling them, I've been ghost hunting for like 15 years now, and I personally started because of guys like these, that I watch them on TV. So what made you guys get interested in the paranormal?
Us or them?
You.
Oh.
Come on, Steve. There's no us and them. It's like we're all together, brother.
For me, it was my, hello? Can you hear me? For me, it was my father, Bruce Sango.
Your mic is nice.
Hello.
Is there a button?
I don't know, my sound guy left me.
I'm on.
Test. There we go.
Okay, yay!
Tech manager.
TV's Dave Tango, everybody.
It was my father. He was a police officer in New Jersey, and he would tell me and my brother stories back in the day, things that would happen to him on the force. And growing up with these stories, it made me very interested and intrigued that, okay, this is real. This is happening to people in uniform. And so it was him. I'm very fortunate that I was able to bring him on a bunch of episodes to, pay him back.
For me, I was always intrigued, but I saw a movie once called The Entity. Kind of messed me up a little bit, and I saw based on true events. My mom told me it was all make-believe, and then I saw that, and that sort of sent me going. I was a bit young, 10 or 12, maybe 10, 11, 9, somewhere around there. But that's what sort of got me started, was the fear of watching that movie.
Yeah, and with me, it's just I've grown up around it. I've had strange things happen my entire life. I grew up in a haunted house. And Dave Tango, kind of a funny deal. My last house I lived in, we were renting, right? And we had it all set up, nice, We had room for our youngest son. And he did not like sleeping in there because of the man in the closet.
Get out.
And the laughter he would hear underneath his bed. And I was like, honey, I think that's your brother's down in the basement. He goes, no. There's a man in my closet who leans out. So he refused to sleep in there. We put him downstairs, and I use that as my studio at home, right? And on the last night we lived there, we bought a house a block away. Last night, everything else in the house is gone except for me and my studio. And I get off the air at 2 o'clock in the morning. Good night, everybody. We'll be back again tomorrow with you. And I hang up my headphones, and I hear the front door open and shut, and I start hearing walking around. And it's 2 in the morning. So I call home, and I'm like, who's over here? Nobody. Everybody's in bed sleeping. So I did what any brave American man would do. I hid in the closet and called 911. And the cops showed up, and I'm on the phone telling my garage coach that they come in, they do a sweep of the house, and then I hear on the bedroom door I'm in, and I'm like, yeah. So I couldn't get out of the closet real quick, because I got to look cool with the cops, right? The cops come in, and they're like, Mr. Schrader, all the doors and windows are locked from the inside. Are you sure? And I'm like, man, I heard it. And they were kind of rolling their eyes, and it was funny because the woman was about 5 feet tall, and the guy's about 6'4", and she's got her thumbs tucked in her bulletproof vest to come out to Apple Valley, Minnesota, where there's so much crime, right? And she's, well, we didn't find anything in the house, and all of a sudden, starts walking around in my kitchen, and they both stop, and they go, wait here. And I said, okay, and I walked back in the closet. They pulled out their guns, and they did a sweep of my house, and the 2 cops showed back up, and they're like, let's go. Let's all go together. We're going to leave now. Let's go. And I'm like, well, what did you find? They're like, nothing. And we were in the kitchen, and it was walking around us, so let's just go. So I do love the cops will tell you from time to time. They can't usually talk about it real openly because they don't want to be called on the stand when they're trying to convict a felon. And by the way, Officer Tango, you see ghosts. And then it calls into question your credibility for some reason. But yeah, I thought that was
That's a great story.
Funny tie-in with the police. Yeah, so my cops in my neighborhood are not thrilled with me and didn't want to come over anymore.
Wow.
So I got into it. My first experience was when I was 6 years old, and it was very profound for me. I went and told my mother about it, and very impactful. And all of the paranormal experiences that I would have would be centered around, like I had a lot of abuse in my life as a child, and I would have these moments that would kind of snap me back to reality, and it would let me know, hey, there's more than this life that you're living currently. And it set me on a path to search and to figure out more about what was going on in my life. And I would read all the books, you know, from Holzer and all of that to try to get more understanding.
Who?
Holzer,
Oh,
you know that show, the
yeah,
Holzer
he's
Files?
good. I
You
like
know,
that show.
where that mean old man
Guy
would
continued
send
to
somebody
abuse
in
you
the
and send you to the
basement.
basement, yeah.
And it just sent me on a path of discovery, of trying to figure out what was going on in my life, and here we are now.
So, okay, so how do you guys like approach an investigation? You get this new location, where do you start? How's your investigative style?
Let's go to the OGs.
Well, for us, if a case comes in, we used to not be as strict as we are now, but then we found a lot of people were doing crazy things. Like even before the show, we would go to a case and we had a guy that put speakers in his walls. And, we found that out, and he told us he just wanted to get on that show Sightings. Remember that TV show Sightings?
Yes.
Yeah, so he actually built speakers in his walls, and there was Grant actually just stuck a screwdriver in the wall and popped out a wire, and they pulled the wall apart. Like, we found your ghost, you asshole. You know? So we got a little more strict with just who we. So it starts with us. The cases come in, goes to different case managers depending on where, and we take cases where somebody actually needs some help first. Children, families, a business owner maybe having a hard time. Everybody needs help, but you know, it's hard to really. You have to implement a bit of a triage system because you can't do all of them. I think with TAPS anyway, speaking for us, you know, we get maybe 50, 60, 100 cases a week or so that come in, and yeah, we do a triage system for us, figuring out what would be the best ones, and you also have to assess, you know, the patterns that you recognize in the cases, the frequency, the severity, because obviously, at least in the TV world, you want cases with a high degree of activity and frequency. Off TV, cases are usually 4 months to 2 years in time, so you don't really care about frequency as much. But for us, that's where it starts. And then we usually, this not to sound rude, but we try to give them some psychological advice in terms of if you talk to anybody, you know, outside of the ghost world to try to figure this out. But that's where we start and tend to go from.
That's correct.
Survey says number one answer. Good job,
Yeah.
Steve. How do you do? You do more of the private investigations. How do you set up for that?
Yeah, it's more along the same vein of what Steve was saying, is you have to kind of vet it a little bit. You know, you have to dig deep into what's going on, kind of the circumstances of what families are dealing with, and then from there, ask them, like he said, if they've talked to somebody professionally, you know, depending on what they're going through, and then take it from there. But it's starting at the base level of just trying to figure out what's going on. If there's any high stress in the home at the time, that could play a factor in it as well. So just figuring that stuff out first, and then going from there.
How do you guys be like, hey, have you went to a therapist recently? Have you been to a psychologist?
Well, you know, we do that because, like I was talking about yesterday, and the 28 Days Haunted panel, is I think a lot of the activity that we experience a lot of the times sometimes has to do with us. Like, we're more powerful than we realize in a lot of ways. And I bring up this story all the time about, you know, have you ever walked into a room after a couple had just got done fighting? And they're not saying anything, they're doing their thing, but you walk in and you can feel, you can cut the tension with a knife, you can feel that atmosphere change, right? Well, we shrug that off all the time, but that is a powerful thing when your body can pick up on somebody else's energy in a way to where you recognize it. You know, they talk about the gut instinct and all that stuff all the time. You can feel when there's a change, which means that we are very powerful beings, and maybe sometimes we are contributing to a lot of the activity that we're experiencing.
Deep.
Yeah.
That was very deep. That's good.
Okay, you guys, I would consider as like the paranormal gods. So is the
Yes.
field
Thank you
like,
so much.
is the
Dave
field?
tells me that all the time.
No, I said, you were in the paranormal, oh, total difference.
But is the field as exciting to you guys still, even though you guys, I mean, do you guys still get hyped up on investigations?
Always.
Really?
Always. Always, yes.
What's your favorite investigation? On TV or off TV?
Big places, I love Waverly Hills and
Oh,
Blue
yeah.
Valley.
Yeah.
Woo.
You pander to the local crowd so well, Steve. And I sure like the rectory down the street from here.
For big places, Waverly Hills. But I really like when there's a personal connection. We did a case in Biglerville, Pennsylvania once that was quite special, and we actually may have mended a marriage through it, and that always means a lot. It was a pretty cool situation where the husband thought the haunting was driving a wedge into their relationship, and they were really kind of at odds with each other. But she had felt like the haunting was bringing them together, that they had now something shared that they were getting through together. And when they kind of looked at each other, I was like, you thought, they somehow snapped them in, and now they're just a happy couple living in their house, no more. But that, in the paranormal, that's a thing. People want to live in a haunted house, all that, I think it's awesome. But when you have a real haunting, it's very hard for the people who live there to maintain relationships, to maintain friendships, to even hold a job or a career. It gets very difficult. You've seen the movie Poltergeist. It's kind of accurate to life. In the beginning, he's having fun. He's watching the game with his friends, his families, everybody's happy. Halfway through the movie, he hasn't shaved in a month. He's in a house coat the whole time. The family is, but
He's
then
ripping his skin off.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the investigators. Is,
Oh,
not
yeah.
the
It's
dad,
been a
the-
minute. It's been a
Yeah, the
minute.
investigator, he goes in there, but that's not true to life, obviously. But the way the investigators act and is though, when they see it, they look at it in reverence and awe, like, oh my God, I can't believe what we're witnessing. And that's more so what it's like in real life. But it is still, wait, we're still on, is it exciting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it is very, 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 yeah. And thank you.
I think for me, the one episode of the Holzer Files we did in Columbus, Ohio, I think it was, right at the Franklin Castle.
Yes.
That one
Oh
was
my
really
gosh,
powerful
awesome.
for me because I got to involve my daughter in it,
Yeah.
right? It was super emotional. I bawled like a baby through that
Yeah.
entire episode. It was really hard to get through just because of the dynamics of the living and the dead and the family, and this little girl just trying to find her parents, and her parents kind of in the newer part of the house trying to find her. It was a very weird setup, but we had a great time. And then the other one that I really enjoyed was we did an episode called The Devil in Texas. And that was a case that went south for Dr. Holzer. He had tried to help the family and thought he had given them some solid advice, get out of the house, and they didn't. The young man that was being haunted and possessed or oppressed, I guess would be the right term, ended up taking his own life. So it was interesting because they came to Shane and I with some of their wish lists that they wanted to do for their cases for the show. And they're like, yeah, man, we really wanted to go after the Devil in Texas story, but it ended really poorly. And I said, well, what if we could rectify that? And they go, what do you mean by rectify that? And I said, well, we see where Dr. Holzer lost touch and where things went south. I have a family who just reached out to me through my radio show, and they need help, and it's very similar. It's a mother and 2 children, and they called and vetted her out, and we went out to do this investigation. And it was really, to me, it was really powerful. It was beautiful because this woman, we got to help her re-empower herself, and she was somebody that was abused physically, mentally, sexually throughout her life, and was in an abusive relationship. And when Shane was talking about the power we have, it was crazy because so much of the things that were happening and so many of the scratches and bruising she would get would happen while she was talking about things that were upsetting to her. And we started to realize, I don't know that there's really a demon here or that there's ghostly activity. I think ghosts might be drawn here, but I think this is emanating from Lydia. And Cindy was like, yeah, she's she's throwing off PK, the psychokinetic energy, like crazy. So I said, well, let's challenge her during the filming. And our crew was like, what are you gonna do? And they don't show it. I got real aggressive with her at her allowance. But I wanted her to re-empower. She's a very quiet, meek little woman. And she's like, I just want the ghost out of my house. I'm like, what? I just want the ghost. Then tell me you want it out of the house, Lydia. And she just stopped. And I go, stop being such a wimp. Own the place. This is your house. These are your kids. And she goes, get the fuck out of my house. And all of our cameras went bonkers. And the PK meters were, what was the device that just started screaming in the room besides you?
The millimeters.
Yeah.
Just real quick, did anybody have a little bit of leakage just now? Holy shit.
But
It got serious
she
quick.
peaked it, yeah, I'm sorry, she peaked it, and all of the stuff went off, and then we were able to say to her, see, a lot of this is coming from you, Lydia. You've got to pull back. You've got to take these people out of your life. And to her credit, she worked with Cindy, and we had a blessing done on her to help her out with Reverend Bill Bean, and took her into the local church. The church opened their doors to us when they heard the story, and not knowing if she was psychologically having issues or paranormally, they were willing to still let Reverend Bean come in and do the clearing. They wouldn't have their pastor do it because she didn't attend the church, but they gave us a holy place to do this, and we had such a beautiful moment. And she's totally flipped her life around. She's in a great relationship. She's in a healthy relationship. She's helping others now that are dealing with the same thing she was dealing with. So to me, that was a really powerful moment in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And sorry for the cursing. But I want you to
Steve, do you
really
need
feel
to go
this story.
change?
What?
I need to go to the bathroom. And we might need a new table.
The most impactful case for me was on the Holzer Files. Again, it was at the Barnstable House in season 1. It was the season finale. And of course, I was in a creepy basement. And
You're welcome.
yeah, thank you for that, Dave. And I was trying to communicate with what we thought was the spirit of a little girl, Lucy, who the story goes that she drowned in the well in the basement. And so I was just trying to get whatever activity I could. And all of a sudden I see a shadow dart from around the corner and come up at me. So in Shane fashion, I jumped the hell out of there as quickly as I could and run out, which was kind of embarrassing. Wasn't my first time, of course. But then I went back down there because I was like, oh crap, I left my recorder down there and I have to go and get it so I can review it later. So, and I'm so glad that I went back and I finished the job and I finished the investigation, because when we went back to the hotel room later that night, I took the recorder and I started reviewing the audio, which is a very tedious process, and I was not excited about it, but what I caught has changed the whole course of how I investigate. It was an EVP of what sounded like a little girl, and it says, "Does no one hear me?" And it's something that really made me think, because, you know, we say all the time, especially with doing these investigations, it's like we want to hear their story. If there's somebody trying to communicate and reaching out, we want to hear the story, right? But a lot of times we're talking, when did you die? How, what date is it where you're at? Can you come and go as you please? Or we say all of this stuff, but we don't take the time sometimes, or I didn't early on, and just listening, just sitting there and listening and experiencing. And that was something that really changed how I do things. And I don't talk as much as I listen now. So that's something that really was impactful for me and really taught me a lot.
I was gonna ask, does anybody have any questions here in the audience?
Real quick, Tango, what's been the most powerful one for you? I want to hear
Oh,
your
I'm sorry,
story.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, please.
New moderator, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I want one now!
And leakage again.
Now we all have to shit.
For me, there was it was a private case. I think it was Ghost Nation, and it was in Halifax, Virginia. It was a house, and I've never experienced a cold spot before. I didn't realize I never experienced a real cold spot. So we're in this room, and we have these documents, these death certificates of people who passed in the house, and we're just systematically going through the names, giving a beat, 5 minutes, and then the next name, and the next name. And I believe the name was Emma. I said, Emma, are you here?
Good memory.
And because it jacked me up. So, Emma, are you here? And it got cold in the room, and then we heard a female voice. We caught it, but it's so low. It wasn't us, obviously. We heard it with our ears, so it wasn't an EVP. It was a disembodied voice. And then, if you can imagine the cold kind of just focusing in one spot, and I put my hand out, so I'm getting chills thinking about this. I put my hand out, and I felt it, and I never realized that a cold spot actually has physical properties. You don't see anything, but it felt like I'm putting my hand through, like in a bowl full of jello, and it's swirling around my hand. And I'm freaking out. I freaked out so much because my brain couldn't handle it. I started tearing up. And to me, if I were to get emotional, I realized that that's a real experience. That it's my brain not understanding. Look, this is not supposed to be real. This is something crazy. I had to sit down. I cried a little bit. Steve teared up.
We cried.
We both, because he did it too.
We cried and hugged.
Yeah. It was insane, and I know that was a legit experience. And to this day, it's always going to stick with me.
Your body has a hard time making sense of what's happening, because all your senses literally say, this is impossible, this is weird, and then you just go through all of these emotions. But it is, the cold spot, I remember it is very much so. That one was quite, maybe the most intense one I've ever experienced. We were at the Stanley Hotel once, and you have to think in the TV world, the camera operators, they're not paranormal investigators. It's likely they don't even believe in that stuff. You become friends with them, so but they're doing a job. And there was one time, it was at Stanley Hotel, there was a pretty legitimate, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Stanley, it was New Bedford Armory. And I just grabbed, because I was feeling a cold spot, it was amazing, and I just grabbed the camera operator's hand and stuck it in it. And the camera fell, but he just was mesmerized, and he got emotional, and was like, I didn't even believe in this stuff. Like, this changed my life. And he could feel it, and he needed some time. At that same case, we had a sound guy, and his sound bag went up and knocked him over and one thing you don't see in that is he cried for probably 2 or 3 hours. On the ground, just crying, and then his name was Frank, and then he actually was a different person. We would see him because he stayed with us for a few weeks. He wouldn't stay in the dark. He couldn't have the lights off. He had to have somebody with him at all times. And then eventually he just said, I can't do this anymore, guys, and he left the show. But he was not a believer. He would kind of even make fun of us a little bit. But yeah, that changed him, and he left the show. So the cold spots can really mess with people.
I'm embarrassed to say that I would go and buy the DVD sets at Sam Goody, and they always have the behind the scenes on that. So I think that's all I wanted, and it was really compelling. What's your most favorite evidence you've ever gotten?
Man, that's a good question.
I don't know if you can really, that's a...
It's like picking your favorite kid. Mine's Ripley, but that doesn't matter.
Well, we all have it, yeah.
Don't put that video online, sir.
Let's go.
It's live streaming.
I love you too, Pacey and Cliff and Jen and Caitlin.
We're gonna be here a while.
I have 11 kids. That's more frightening than any paranormal experience I've ever been in. I think being pushed in the Whaley house, that was our very first episode we filmed together as a team. And we were moving around, and I love these guys. I've known them since TAP started, and I know the Ghost Adventures guys, and I'm friends with all these people. And I watch the shows, and when something touches or scratches them, your brain just has a hard time on the outside processing that it actually happens. And I've been in hundreds of haunted locations, and I've had things kind of breeze past me where you can feel something gently move. I'd never been physically assaulted. So when we were in the Whaley house, I was very reticent. Our first episode we were gonna do, I thought, one of the most overdone locations on planet Earth. I just was bummed, but it was one that Hans Holzer put on the map. So I was kind of reluctant to what was gonna happen, and then asking the right questions, we found some great stuff. Like they had the original journals where the family, everybody always talks about the house being haunted by the Whaleys. We have the journals where Mr. and Mrs. Whaley are talking about the haunting going on while they live there. Yeah, and we got to show that, so that was exciting. And then when we're doing that EVP session, and I kind of challenged this spirit, Juan Verdugo, and I said, you know, Juan, are you the one, he was shot. I said, are you the one that pushed Violet Whaley to kill herself? And the three of us are standing under the area where they would hang people, and we hear bang, gunshot go off in the house, and all of us, yeah.
You forgot your.
The table's starting to weaken, I can feel it on my legs. You could hear it and feel it, and like even the crew jumped, and I'm like, did we catch it? And we start playing the recording back, and I think you guys just see us play it back once. We played it back like 3 or 4 times, and it was on the 4th time that I get smacked, and I go up into Shane and hit the ground. And my brain processed the fact that it's really dark. You guys get a false sense of security because you get night vision. You're watching us in green screen light, right? We can't see as well. I thought one of the cameramen had come around to get a shot and tripped on the carpet and fell into me. That's how heavy this was when it hit me. It was like being hit by a football player. So I hit the ground, and I'm kind of pissed that, Jesus, I'm old, don't be knocking me around, right? And I turn around to look at the camera guy to make sure they're okay, and there's no camera guy. So that's why you kind of, if you watch the episode, when Shane helps me back up and I turn around and look, and then I kind of turn my head back, my brain just broke, because I was like, what just hit me? And
Yeah,
Sydney's warning me 30 seconds ago that this thing's gonna sweep my knees like Johnny and the Karate Kid, and all of a sudden I go up and hit the ground, and yeah, Shane
Yeah, and I thought, because it was the first time we worked together, so I was like, did this old man just have a stroke? That's exactly what I thought. I was like, we're gonna have to find a new lead investigator.
And I walked
already.
around outside asking myself, did I faint? Did something happen? Because I couldn't.
Yeah.
And then the production pulled me aside because they have their little headquarters off site where they're reviewing and watching all the cameras and sound and everything. And the one best part was we had the one Christine Schuler from Travel Channel, our executive producer.
Yeah.
She came on set for our first episode and never came back because that was her first episode. She watched me get thrown. Then they bring me over and they go, did you fake that? And I'm like, I don't even know what happened to me. Did I pass out? And they're like, no, dude. Did you jump into Shane? Listen, I know I look like a dancer, but I'm not that good. I'm like, no, and they're like, watch this, and they kept pulling it back like we were watching like Monday Night Football review. They go, your ankles pop, your knees bow, and you go up. And I go, then how are you asking, did I do that? What part of you looked at me and thought, that guy's agile?
They thought we were really good.
Yeah, and I hit Shane and hit the ground. That really scattered me for a while. And once the executive producer, Christine, comes over and she goes, all right, is everything, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? I'm like, yeah. She goes, okay, somebody walked into my car, I wanna go home. She left and we never saw her again in 2 seasons, except for when we were in New York, like a block away from the office. She and a group of execs came by to say hi to us, see the haunted house, and left before we investigated because they did not want to be in the hailstorm. So that to me was one of my favorite episodes, just because it was so mind-blowing when you have something happen that you're not prepared for, right, Dave? I mean, you ghost hunted for how long, and then you actually touch the cold spot, and you're like, wait, this is a thing?
This is a thing. I had no idea.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Told you.
Yeah.
I did. I was like, you'll feel it someday. He's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. And then it happened.
It doesn't happen often. It was like 10 years for you, right, Steve? Last time you had that happen?
Well, yeah, it was. It was maybe, yeah, because it would have been the Armory,
Right?
which was in 2004.
Yeah.
And then that was 2020, maybe? So it's 16 years
Wait,
in between my cold spot.
Wasn't, okay, sorry, I'm a geek, guys. Wasn't there the cold spot that moved in Savannah? There was some place, I think it was at Moon River Brewery.
Maybe. Was it my experience?
Yeah, it was like the cold spot like moved and like you were able to track it.
Okay. When was Moon River?
Let's
Was
go
it
to the footage.
2000?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'd say 13 years.
Yeah, sorry.
So it's been 13 years in between. Yeah, been a long, long time. You are in there.
I travel, I planned my vacations by ghost hunter at this point. I've noticed there are some questions. Rachel, you had one?
Yeah, well, more than a question, it was just something going along the lines of what Tango was talking about, cold spot. Last place I went ghost hunting was Perryville Battlefield. Okay, and of course it's nighttime, we're in the plantation, I'm up on the second floor, and there's a closet. I open the closet.
Are you in the bottom's house?
Yes.
Okay.
Open the closet, and all I felt was a rush of cold. And that cold, it was like, it went around me, and it was the weirdest thing, because what it did was, I felt like it just grasped me. And I'm trying to move, and I'm trying to explain it to the people that are with me, and they were like, like they think they're bullshitting.
Right.
And I'm like, no, seriously, I cannot move. I'm not kidding, I cannot move. It
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
and it was like ice cold. And it just happened when I opened the closet door.
So you physically you just couldn't
Yeah,
even move.
somebody
yeah.
told me that that room belonged to the girl that used to live there, you know, her name was Elizabeth. So then I said something along the lines of, when they walked off, I went, Elizabeth, if you're holding me, loosen your grip, please. And it's like, maybe about 30 seconds later, I just felt like it just rushed away.
You gotta be like, back up. Ghost.
That was the wildest thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The second thing that happened to me over there was up on the battlefield itself where the cannons are. I got pushed. And I got pushed hard. Like, I'm standing there and it was just like, wham! Out of nowhere, I got hit here and I just hit the ground. It was the craziest thing, and not even 2 seconds later, you hear like the cannon blast.
I could go camping there. It would be nice. Sandy, what's up?
Hey.
Hey.
Hey guys. Love you all.
Pumpkinhead.
Hey.
Pumpkinhead, you've
What
got
you-
half a face of pumpkin.
So Dave, too, wasn't the ghost of Devil's Perch, you felt like you got shot?
I thought I had a heart attack, or
Yeah.
that
I did. I
my
thought you were
appendix
gone.
ruptured. And that's another funny element, right? Because the camera guys, they have to treat everything like they're National Geographic cameramen watching the Serengeti plains and a lion being attacked by a gazelle. That would be cool to see, right? But they just have to let happen what happens. So I've got the recording. I should break it out someday. Maybe I'll play it on the show, but kids cannot listen. It's 15 minutes of the Effenheimer from Cindy. Because we're in that little shanty in the shack at the Cabbage Patch, and she's talking and kind of getting the spirits out, and I literally, it felt like something exploded inside me, and I screamed and hit the ground, and I really thought I was checking out, and nobody would move to do anything. They just kept filming me, and Cindy's like, "What the beep is wrong with you? Beep, beep, put the beep camera, I can't beep, TV sucks, beep, I quit this beep show, beep, 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 beep." You think I'm kidding? And she went off on this tirade. It was amazing. So I'm crippled on the floor, dying, but she's not coming to my aid either. She's just cursing out everybody else that's not coming to my aid. But for insurance purposes, they have to make sure they're filming if I die on camera. They want to be able to say how it happened, what happened and all. But we do have a police officer and an EMT that's always nearby. So they brought the EMT in and brought the police officer in and brought me out of the shanty, and I actually started feeling better when I got out. And I was breathing fresh air and trying to, wrap my head around again what happened, not thinking it's paranormal at all. I really think, oh God, something broke. I'm old. This is not good. And then they're like, well, we're gonna take you to the hospital. And this is Butte, Montana during COVID.
Yes.
And Montana was not a
Oh
mask
my
or a
gosh.
vax state. They just didn't like to do it. So all they talked about on the news was how all the hospitals are overrun. People are in the halls. I'm like, I'm not going to the hospital. I'll just die in the car. We're fine, right? And they're like, no, you should go. And I'm like, no, what if it's just gas, right? What if it's gas? I'm okay. And they're like, no, we're gonna take you in. And then Cindy starts yelling at me, my work wife, and then they called my wife. So my wife is on my phone yelling at me, and Cindy's yelling at me, "You're going to the hospital, jackass." And then I just let them talk it out, and I got the ambulance, right? So we went to the hospital. They ran every test they could possibly run on me. I was there for hours and hours. They wouldn't let me sleep because they didn't know if I was gonna die. And it's so funny because they kept coming into the room and they're like, "So what are you in town for? What are you doing? Where were you? Where did this happen?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was at the Cabbage Patch. I was doing a tour, and I don't know, felt like something ruptured, and they're like, oh, isn't that haunted? Oh, is it? And they're like, and then finally they kept goading me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm with a TV show we're filming. Ah, we knew it. You know, this hospital's haunted. Every place in Butte is haunted, legitimately.
I've seen that.
It is so
Wow.
crazy. And the doctor comes in, and my favorite line ever from a doctor. All right, well, let's go over the results. Looking at you and your age and weight, I thought we were in trouble. I swear to God, that was the first thing out of his mouth. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, nope, everything's great. All your numbers are perfect. This is great. That's great. I don't know why you're even in our hospital. And I'm like, well, but I felt something. It took Cindy a couple days. She really dogged it down, man, and she figured out that's where the guy had been shot, and she thought I walked into a psychic place memory. I'd never had that happen. Terrified the hell out of me. I would never want to have that experience again. Feeling somebody else's pain and that sense of I'm dying is horrifying. Absolutely terrifying stuff. So yeah, that was powerful.
See, I
Very weird.
didn't get to ask my question. You told a great story.
Oh, sorry. I thought you. Okay. Yeah,
So
go ahead. Yeah.
But as well as getting hurt,
Uh-huh.
I also appreciate you guys going in and getting history. And like some people say that this person abused his children, did this, and that's why I haunted. But yet you find the true story, and then you make the family at rest that they aren't bad people. There's just something else there. And so sometimes you have to get like people that are trying to get a haunted attraction and tell them the true story, and you bring it out. That is my favorite part, and the history. And I thank you for guys for doing that,
Thank you.
because, like I said, ghosts can be, I feel like, upset too and abused.
Yeah.
So when you go in and tell the true story, and they're not getting accusations against them that aren't true. So thank you for that, for the history, because that's what I love. And poor Shane.
Now wait a minute. Can we review the poor Shane?
Are you
Here
okay?
we go.
I forgot to ask, when he fell on you, are you okay?
I think, but at the time I was like, screw this. This TV stuff is not for me. If I'm gonna have this linebacker old man dude slam
You're
into me
winning
all the
into
time,
him, yeah.
this is not for me at all. But
In 23 episodes, 24 episodes of the show, Shane got a scratch on his elbow once. I was bit, I was shoved, I split my back open. Poor Shane.
Is he okay?
that's because he's old. It has nothing to do with the paranormal.
Probably scared the ghost by stomping on something.
Yeah, maybe.
So I asked you guys this yesterday, but I'll ask again because we have some new people here. But I'm a very negative person, and I just want to know, what is your all's paranormal pet peeve? Mine is when people vape on investigations. It drives me nuts.
They do that? People do that?
Yeah.
I was gonna say
I've
that
never
would
seen
happen.
that kill him.
Yeah, I was on the 5th floor of Waverly Hills, and I was like, I smell strawberries. That's so weird. And someone's like, oh yeah, my bad, I'm sorry. Like,
No.
Yeah, my favorite is the guy with the cigarette dangling out of his mouth taking pictures in the cemetery. And then trying to show me his misty ghosts. Or they're wearing parkas and hats and mittens, and they're out in the cemetery taking pictures. Look at this mist. Did you breathe? What do you mean, did I breathe? That's probably your breath. It's not my breath, it's a ghost. It's obviously a ghost.
or the dust. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh.
So what's your pet peeve, Dave?
I mean, I don't like, I mean, it's fine. People ask us our opinions. You know, we're not, I mean, I'm not an expert. There's no experts in this field, but we'll give you, our best, answer. And a lot of times it happens more often than you think, where people, they're like, here's this picture, look at this, what do you think? Tell me what you think. I'm like, well, it looks like, like a piece of cloth, like, it's your arm, it's smoke, something. That's what we think. And they're like, no way, you're full of it, no way. I'm like, then don't come up to me and ask me. I'm trying to help you, That happens a lot, so that's my pet peeve.
I'd agree with that, and people do get quite upset. They hold on to it, and they think we're just like making things up. But we tell them that because what we would do, especially in the early days, is we wouldn't just say, "Oh, this is." We would send all of the pictures to laboratories, to Kodak labs. We would use local state police, and they would tell us, hey, this picture, you have dirty developing solution, you have this is a lens, this all these things, this is a lanyard, and this is how, and they would really help you out with that. So we would tell people, like, we're not just making this up. Scientists tell us that if you can capture energy on film, it's gonna be solid, not transparent. So what you're showing me is not real. It's, you know, but they really hold on to it. One thing that is, I guess it's not a pet peeve, but we have a lot of people that, you know, take things and pretend that it's theirs or invented. There's someone out now that has like this method or something, and this person would come to our events and be like, just say you're Steve from Ghost Hunters and you support this, and you're using the XX method. I'm like, this is just real-time analysis. This is what we've been doing
I
for
think it's
20
pronounced
years.
Estes method.
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
I don't
XX
know.
method?
There are a lot of those people who would say, this is, and it's like, this person would come to our events and be like, dude, now put this on and say you're using the XX method. I'm like, but I've been doing this for 20 years. There's nothing new. You can see us all the time.
It's not what we're here for. That's not what this is all about. We're all here, together for one purpose. And it's like if people are trying to, have their title and name things, it's like you're in it for the wrong reasons, in my opinion.
Also, phone apps.
Oh,
Let's talk about that
phone
stuff.
apps.
I got kicked out of Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum for life because their staff was using Ghost Radar, this phone app, like telling people there are ghosts and tours, and I kind of just, you're lying to people, you're duping people, this isn't right, you shouldn't be doing this, and then they said I was no longer welcome back. But it's like, you're duping, you're like lying to people, this is clearly make-believe, this is not, you're not finding a ghost.
It even says for entertainment purposes only in the app.
If there was a ghost finder, like, we would all be rich and like, we found a way, we can finally, like, it doesn't even make sense, it'd be on CNN or something, I don't know.
What about you guys?
Yeah, so my pet peeve is, and I get people's excitement and fascination with the paranormal, but my pet peeve is when they believe that everything is a ghost or a spirit or a demon or whatever. And the reason why is because, there's a lot of reasons that we can scientifically validate as to why something is happening. And we need to understand that and try to figure out if it's something that can be explained before we jump into the paranormal angle. When somebody believes every footstep is a ghost or a spirit, that's the wrong approach, because there's old houses and stuff that can settle, and the creaking of the floorboards is a natural thing. It's things that happen. Houses settle, they make noise, So that's really my biggest pet peeve, is people that jump to everything being a ghost. It's just not reality. It's not something that we should be doing. We should be trying to use our brains to try to understand the other side and do it the right way.
You're here.
See, now, I don't call that a pet peeve so much as the fact that people get frightened and they watch TV shows and movies. So we're very understanding, and I know it's a pet peeve, but not in the sense of like, oh God, what an idiot. It's more along the lines of we just wish people would use critical thinking a little bit more. And it's okay to walk through it. I had a woman call me and she said, I had a paranormal team out here. They came in for 15 minutes and ran out. They caught what sounds like a demon growling, and I think I have a demon. And I said, well, you can stop. You don't. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, you don't have a demon. She goes, why? And I said, you said you think you have a demon. I said, if you think you have a demon, probably don't have a demon, but go ahead and tell me what happened. So she played me the EVP that they collected. And I kid you not, this is exactly how it sounded. There's something here. Can you please give a sign of your presence?
Somebody's hungry.
Anything at all, just let us know you're here. It was somebody's stomach growling. Left the house and told them in 15 minutes she had a demon and they were in over their heads. Only one part of that statement was true.
I have a
Way
demon.
over their heads. Yeah. So I talked her down, and you can do this really well as a ghost hunter too. It's just better, paranormal investigator, probably the proper term. But I talked her off the wall. I said, so what happened to make you believe you have a demon? She goes, well, I have this collection of collector's plates on my wall. And in the middle is kind of my centerpiece. It was my great-grandmother's plate. And it flew off the wall and shattered. And I said, well, did it make like a pentagram on the floor? No. Did it make like 666 with the shards? No. Did they hover in the air and try to impale you against the door? No. So why do you think it was a demon? was my grandmother's plate. And I took a breath. I go, all right, let's just imagine hell this morning. We're standing in front of his minions, and he's like, all right, guys, we got a busy day. For some reason, Satan always sounds like Rolf the dog in my head. So just deal with it. All right, boys, we got a busy day. You, go start a war in the Middle East. You, go raise oil prices. And you, go break Grandma's plate. Right? It's not like his kind of idiot nephew, Larry, who can't really do much. Okay, Uncle Lou. And he breaks a plate, and she starts laughing, and I go, where did your grandmother get the plate? She got it from her mother-in-law on her wedding day. I said, oh, what was their relationship like? Oh, she hated her mother-in-law.
Oh, there you go.
And I said, well, is there any chance Grandma came by to visit and knocked the plate off the wall and said, get rid of that ugly thing? And she laughed. She goes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I said, all right, here's my number. Call me if things get worse. I didn't hear from her, and 10 years later, I bumped into her at a con, and she came over and she goes, nothing ever happened after that. Nothing. I said, so do you think it was a ghost, or do you think maybe the nail was loose and the plate slipped? She goes, oh no, it flew off the wall and shattered, but I really do think it was my grandmother just getting rid of the stupid plate. But again, critical thinking. Why automatically jump to the fear factor? Aren't you afraid? No, don't go into these places in fear, right? That's like asking Dave Tango, you were at the zoo. Were you terrified to see all those animals? No, we went to the zoo to see the animals. Now, if I'm in my basement watching Monday Night Football and a gorilla runs in, I'm gonna be afraid, right? I'm gonna be afraid if the Headless Horseman shows up, but you know, where I don't expect them, but not when you go in. Don't go in a place of fear. If you're in a place of fear, this isn't the gig for you. Don't do it. Don't do it as a hobby. You just gotta learn. These are people, or remnants of people, fractals, pieces of who they were, and maybe they just want to be heard. And how rare is it that they actually get seen and heard? And maybe if you just take the time to listen and promise to tell the story right, get it out there. A lot of these locations have very twisted versions of history that, thanks to shows like Ghost Hunters and Holzer Files and the like, have helped to rectify the histories. They're not always happy that we rectify the history, but it becomes cemented, and we have the background to back these claims. And that's important. So don't walk in a place of fear, just help understand the story better.
So we are getting kind of close to the end of the panel. Is there any more questions from the audience? You first.
Outside of your own works or works that you've been affiliated with, are there any like pieces of media, like a book or a film or a documentary or a YouTube channel? Are there anything that you would recommend to people that are first getting into the paranormal? And then are there also any works that you would recommend to skeptics?
Yes.
Next question. Like a NASA meeting all of a sudden.
Always read anything by Lloyd Auerbach, especially ESP Hauntings. And ESP Poltergeist Hauntings through Parapsychologist Handbook. I always forget the order of the first three. That book is amazing. It's safe. And I would also suggest, if you're not really into getting into physics too deeply, because you should understand the laws of science, because if what you're seeing disobeys the laws of science, then it's absolutely impossible that you're seeing what you're seeing. So maybe you're misinterpreting. But if you don't want to get deep into that, there's a quick sort of, just to get your toes wet, by physicist Brian Cox. 30 minutes, 3 sections. It'll give you a basic understanding of particle physics. And that will help skeptics and believers, both, I think. Gentlemen?
There's this great book downstairs written by this fellow named Steve Gonzalez. It gives you
That's
kind
what I
of
was gonna
a
say.
look into his life and paranormal. And next to him, there's a table where a guy co-wrote a book called The Other Side, A Guide to Ghost Hunting and the Paranormal. It's real thin, real easy to read, and it's written by Dave Schrader, and I don't use big words. And there's pictures. So if you come by and stop in, and you know, never treat skeptics like it's a disease or a bad thing. We need more skeptics. Skeptics mean they're just asking the questions that need to be asked. Cynics, that's a different thing.
I would always say learn deductive reasoning. You know, try to be a detective. When you think that way, you're gonna really figure things out at places.
And if you want to be the demonologist, just make sure you watch scary movies. That's really all you need. Yeah, no, don't do that.
I was going to mention the same books that Dave did. I mean, these guys up here, I trust them immensely. Very good friends of mine, and they really use their brain when we do this stuff, which is Dave.
Collectively, we only have one
I was
between
about to
us.
say Dave West, maybe Steve and Tango. But now I trust these guys, and you know, Steve, his new book, and Dave's book, you know, that's a good starting point for sure.
And they happen to be easy to get to today.
Yeah. And autographs.
Oh, you know what's a really cool documentary, and it's on YouTube, is the Afterlife Investigations, The Skull Experiment. Have you seen that? Oh, it's really good. It's an interesting story, and just watching the way these teams worked and some of the stuff, everything from using spirit box radios to these people would meet together to have these seances every time at the same place, same day, and the activity that they got was nuts. Like they would bring in unopened rolls of film and set them on the table. They would all hold hands in this dark room doing the seance, and at the end of the deal, they would remove the film and have it developed, and there'd be messages and photographs and crazy stuff on the film.
Wow.
So is it real? I don't know. There's a great book on it, but I love that documentary. It really kind of opens your brain up to thinking differently about how we do a lot of things in paranormal.
That's a good question, sir.
Yeah.
What was it called?
The Afterlife Investigations, The Skull Experiment. Yeah, if you go to the Paranormal 60, that's my YouTube page. If you go to my YouTube page and go under videos, I think I've got a link down there, or I've got it on there so you can find it.
There's a gentleman in a green shirt back there.
As paranormal investigators and educators in a way for so long, who or what are some of your all's bigger inspirations to keep going?
Good question.
And also, what are your craft better?
In the paranormal world?
Paranormal, entertaining, both.
I'm sitting right next to one of them right here. This guy, you know, they found me. I was a young buck, and I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew some stuff, but they really molded me, and they're continuing to mold me. We're all molding each other constantly. You're always learning, and you know, there's methods and things that's like, you know, let's try this out, and it works, but it doesn't work. It's always experimenting. But yeah, you know, being with them really did it for me.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you made him wear a tiara his first episode.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to.
It was a headlamp.
Yeah, it was a headlamp.
Yeah, special, okay.
It's a lot.
For me, I still will read just about everything I can get my hands on that I think seems intriguing. Of course, Jesus.
Thanks, Bugs Bunny.
And I'll still follow Lloyd Auerbach. He has a YouTube channel, and yeah, to me, he's probably my go-to when it comes to all things paranormal. I actually we do a lot of paranormal events where actually Mr. Schrader here really pioneered that whole thing. And we would invite people to come, we still do, and depending on the place, if it's a place like Waverly Hills, there could be 200 or 300 people, but if it's a place that is a nice, you know, it could be as small as 40 or 50 people, very intimate and awesome. But I actually found myself learning a lot from other investigators that are just in the field that would come with us and be like, have you ever tried this? No, actually, and you really bounce a lot of ideas off of each other. And then not only that, you get to do it in real time. Hey, you should try, okay, then let's go try it and see it really. And I actually did learn quite a lot from investigators through those events, and sometimes still do.
Gentlemen?
Dave.
Well,
Shane.
my answer, one of them is Dave.
Tango, he means.
No. Dave Schrader, because I was like 2 whenever you got started, right? You know, I've been in it for like a lot of years. No, I'm just kidding. But he's, I've watched him do stuff and listened to his podcast when I was first getting started and everything, and he was a very big inspiration, and it was a very humbling thing to be able to finally get to work with him and learn from him more, even though he was what y'all would say is a bully at times. But no, he wasn't really a bully. But him sending me into locations that got me out of my comfort zone, you know, is very important because, you know, I wouldn't be able to do some of the things that I do if I didn't step out of that comfort zone. And he kind of forced me to do that, which I'm very thankful for. And like Steve was saying too, there's a lot of people in our field that are really good people. I mean, every once in a while you have some bad apples, but for the most part, we've got really good people in this field that you can learn from and get a lot of knowledge from, so, yeah.
Yeah, read, listen to podcasts and interviews, that's the best thing to do, because even from the people that are not very good at what they do, you learn a lot, right? I'm not more, people ask me on the show, do you really believe all the ghost stories and all the weird experiences? Not at all. I don't believe all of them, but it's not my job to believe. I just let people share their stories. And you know what? The ones I think sometimes are the looniest, I get messages from people around the world saying, oh my God, thank you for having that guy on the show. You know, I almost killed myself because I thought I was insane having those experiences. It is so refreshing to know I'm not alone, somebody else out there. So just because it doesn't make sense to me doesn't mean it's not very real to others. So I love just listening, reading books. I get a lot of audiobooks, you know, everything from Holzer to the Warrens to P. Scott Rogo to Lloyd Auerbach, and Dr. Barry Taff and William Roll. There's really great predecessors out there.
Thank you, Dave. I forgot about William G. Roll, the king.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, William G. Roll all day long. Thank you. Go
Yeah.
on, excuse me.
So there's just great books, and like I said, you can read some of them and roll your eyes at it, but you learn from those experiences and those stories. I think the young lady
Yeah,
over there.
well, you'll be our last question for today.
Yeah. You, back row. You, ponytail, yeah.
Yeah, you,
Yeah.
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 Is there a specific location, place, building that you had investigated that you'd like to?
The question is some that we haven't investigated that we would like to.
Yes.
Yeah, many places. I'll start the Coliseum. I think would be really cool. I don't fly, so I'll take a ship. That would be awesome. Any of the castles overseas, I think would be really awesome for me. But I don't fly, so again, be the time to take a ship. And I kind of always wanted to investigate the Villisca Axe murder house.
Oh, yes.
Heard good things about it.
What about Brian Jarrett? Have you all investigated anything around Jarrett?
Louisville, well,
Oh, yeah.
what is it, Waverly Hills.
Waverly Hills,
Yeah.
Bell of Louisville.
Lexington, more or less, besides Louisville?
Lexington.
I don't think Lexington.
I know you guys did Buffalo Trace that day.
Oh, yes, we did. Buffalo
Yeah.
Trace.
That's in Frankfurt, so
Okay.
not Lexington. Oh, Rose Opera House, yeah.
Okay, thank you. We did those places.
Me, I'd like to get into the White House. That would just be just the history. I love places that are steeped in history, and I don't care who the president is at the time. I just would love to go get access to the White House because so many employees and staff members and families have walked out talking about the strange things. The Bush twins talk about it on regular TV, right? They're on news shows and they've talked openly about hearing things and music, and that the butlers will be like, "Yep, happens all the time."
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Personally for me, the Paris Opera House, then the catacombs underneath, I would love to just be there. That's where I would love to go.
That was my answer.
Get out of here.
Yeah, the catacombs of Paris, because there's thousands and thousands of bones.
Let's
And
go.
like, just imagine the energy that you would feel in that location. I mean, that's something that I think would be such a surreal experience.
And as somebody who's been there twice, it is.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable. Yeah. And if you ever get a chance to, by boat, make it over to Prague, go see the Sedlic ossuary. The entire inside is decorated with human bones. It's unbelievable, beautiful. They just found a way that they had to disinter all these bodies, and they all got mixed. Instead of just throwing them in a heap in a cart, they made this beautiful decorative place out of it. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to live there, but it's a cool place to visit for sure.
Well, I would like you guys to all give a round of applause for our guests.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
And if you have any more questions for them, they'll be up at Stars Row for the rest of the show. For the rest of the day, the floor closes at 5 today, so be sure to make your way there if you have any more questions. and buy books and autographs and stuff.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.